So just another video on a theory I think would be neat for some new villains in the Star Wars franchise. I think it would be really neat to kind of experiment with droids being force sensitive. I think this could be a real threat to maybe some new Jedi, and it'd be kind of a scary thing, I think, to see on the big screen. In The Mandalorian, for example, you have the Dark Troopers really becoming kind of some elite versions of droids, not just the ones we've seen with the Separatists in Attack of the Clones. So I think even maybe a level up from the Dark Troopers could be some sort of droids with force abilities, maybe even a new level or elite version of them, or even someone like the proxy droid in The Force Unleashed. He was able to kind of mimic a bunch of other characters' styles, such as Kenobi or Darth Maul, 4-star killer when he was training. The only difference was that the droid didn't have any force abilities. So Starkiller could kind of get the feel down for their lightsaber combat and their particular styles, but it just wasn't enough to mimic what a real battle would have been like with the Force. So I think if you had something like the proxy droid, but then now droids are able to be force sensitive, I think that could really be a problem for some new Jedi. There isn't much of a history of this, but there are a few exceptions. I believe there was kind of a spin-off to when George Lucas had Star Wars, where one of Luke Skywalker's droids ended up having some sort of force capability, but this was kind of just in a comic that now isn't really part of canon. There's also some other instances, I think it was comics or just some kind of small developments within Star Wars, known as the Iron Shards, which were pretty much droids with force capabilities, but they kind of would classify more into like a cyborg, almost like Vader or Grievous, where there is a living being in them, which makes the force possible. In this case, I believe it was living crystals, but I think in terms of being a living being, this would be at the really lower echelon, kind of making this more possible for some droids to have force sensitivity. So I think something like that could be done to kind of really bring these in as a new group of antagonists. They could be wired a special way to make them evil. We kind of seen this with the first season of The Mandalorian with the IG-11 droid getting kind of a hard wiring as a bounty hunter, versus when the older guy, he reprograms him back into being a good form, which becomes kind of more of a protector for Grogu. So I think something could be done with that in terms of programming these force-sensitive droids. Another instance is the kind of C-3PO evil version, which is known as 000. I think even him in live action or some sort of project would be really neat to see. And I think there was one instance of him trying to take blood from force-sensitive people to get their midichlorians and inject that into other droids to make them have force abilities. I'm not sure how this exactly worked or turned out. This is just another example of how the storyline could potentially be interwoven into a new Star Wars movie, a new project or something like that. But I just think it would be a really interesting concept to dive into, and something that hasn't really gotten explored yet. So just some interesting thoughts on that, and I will see you later.